Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that he needs to do better right after his birthday party? I, 26 female, has been dating my BF, 28 male, for a year. We do not fight a lot and are generally very happy people. We live separately. His birthday was coming up and I wanted to do something nice for him and asked if there was anything he wanted. He said he wanted nothing but would like to spend more time together. I got him a bunch of presents anyway and planned a surprise visit to a place he had earlier expressed a desire to visit. I asked him if he would be free on the day, a month in advance, and he said yes, after which I booked the trip. Last week, i.e., the week before his birthday, I reminded him of the plans, i.e., surprise activity and dinner, and he said he was excited. I was excited too. Birthday arrives and I get a bunch of texts from him saying his best friend, 29 female, has asked him to go to her and her boyfriend's place urgently so he'd be stopping at theirs before he comes to meet me. We still had plenty of time left till we had leave, so I text him that's fine. I get a reply from him, half an hour later, saying that they arranged a surprise birthday party for him and apologizing for, most likely wouldn't be able to make it, and asking if I could reschedule. I was hurt and called the place I booked the visit to and they said they can't reschedule but were willing to give me a 55% refund. I was extremely hurt for not being invited, but the best friend and I aren't close so that's natural I suppose, and also because nothing went according to plan. He came to see me later in the evening and I gave him the presents and didn't act hurt because it seemed like he didn't realize it was a big deal. Yesterday, his family held a gathering to celebrate his and his niece's birthdays, which are close together. I was invited to that so I went and whilst we were there, someone asked him what he did on his birthday and he mentioned the surprise party. I was annoyed and later when he asked me if anything is wrong, my eyes welled up. He had no clue what was going on so kept on asking me about it so I told him, in private, to think about it and added that he needs to do better for this relationship to work. He looked hurt and hasn't really talked to me after we left except for good morning and good night texts. I feel like I ruined his birthday happiness and feel like an asshole. Am I the asshole? Edit. I talked to my boyfriend. He apologized for being a bottomhole who didn't realize how much an idiot he was. I apologized for not telling him earlier and letting it fester. He says, apology not accepted because there's nothing to apologize for. As for everyone who is telling me to leave him, I do see your point. I really do and I will if anything like this happens again. This is the first time anything like this has happened. This is a relationship I've invested a lot of time, money and energy in and I am on excellent terms with his family and except for this incident, the past year with him has been very, very good. His best friend sent a long apology. The gist was she wasn't very happy with me for declining past invitations to go to the spa and go golfing and didn't want me to say decline again, causing him to not go to the party. She says she was immature about it and wants to meet up on Monday which I've agreed to. Thank you for all the comments. Not the asshole. How are you not at least invited by him to his surprise party once he was surprised? Or why would he stay at a party you are not invited to? You should have expressed how hurt you were before getting upset at the family party, but that you felt emotions after holding in your feelings is only human. You are not the asshole in this situation. He, however, is. He knew you were planning something and completely blew it off. Not only did he choose to do something else, it was a party you weren't even invited to. And he expects you to be okay with it all? I would have returned every present, and it would be a long time until I felt like talking to him again. Not the asshole, but also, are you sure you two are dating? This isn't like, we are dating, behavior out of him lol. A year is long enough for him to show you some respect. You have every right to be hurt. He did not even care about your plans. He should have been with you. You had plans with him and his disregard for those is mean. You need to let him know your feelings. You need to let him know he let you down. If this is how he treats you, maybe you should rethink this relationship. This is no way to treat someone who you supposedly care about. He also needs to pay you back for the cancellation. You should not have given him gifts. He did not deserve them. Not the asshole even if the friend are not close with you or don't vibe with you, it's the basic respect. You even ask him to make time for you specifically in advance and he knew about the plan. After he realized it was a surprise party, why didn't he ask his friend about inviting you? Or ask you to come? Sure, you could have said something, but it was his birthday and you tried to hold it. You are right, he needs to do better. Am I the asshole for putting harsh conditions on my mother attending her own mother's funeral? I, M20, and my brother Maurice, M22, are in charge of my grandmother's estate. She left us everything and we are also organizing the funeral. When I was 14, my mother married Jacques. He also has a son Henny, now 19. Henri was always a little shit. Especially because Jacques spoiled him endlessly and Henri would take every advantage. If myself or Maurice had something he wanted, he'd go to Jacques and then before long, it would belong to Henri. My mother had no spine when it came to standing up to Jacques and Henri knew it. The big turning point came when Henri complained that my grandparents gave Maurice and I better presents than him. Which they did. They still got him something, but not as much and not as nice. Jacques went to my mother, and my mother went to my grandfather and said that unless they can treat Henri as a full grandchild, that they won't have contact with us. My grandfather was a good man, but stubborn as a mule. Stubborn enough to stand up to the Nazis as a mere boy, so he wasn't going to let anybody boss him around. He despised Jacques and also thought Henri was a spoiled little shit. He said Henri is not his grandson and that he's never going to regard him as such. He will treat him respectfully, but it is not his grandson. So, my mother cut us off from our grandparents. Maurice and I secretly kept in contact with our grandparents until we moved out. When Maurice was old enough, he moved to Strasbourg to live with them. I now live in Nantes while I go to university. Both of us have very little contact with our mother. However, over COVID, my grandfather died. Sadly, before I ever got to see him again due to my mother not allowing it. My grandmother told my mother that she broke my grandfather's heart by taking her grandson, me, away from her father to please her shitty ogre of a husband and his shitty runt of a child. My mother was unwelcome at the funeral unless she was coming to apologize to her father before he went in the ground and that she better not dare bring Jacques and Henri. My mother hung up the phone and they never spoke again. My grandmother never forgave my mother for this. Then last week, our grandmother passed. My mother heard about it and said she was coming to Strasbourg to manage the estate. Maurice told her that the estate had nothing to do with her. It was left solely to him and myself and she has no part of it. We could tell she was fuming, but held it in. Then she asked about the funeral and I told her that I didn't think it was appropriate she come. She parted ways with my grandmother in life, so it is inappropriate for her to be standing there for her now that she's gone. My mother said she wanted to make things right. I said fine, I do know one way where I think our grandparents would welcome her. Under my grandfather's terms. If she was coming to apologize and she can't bring her ogre of a husband and his goblin child. She started cursing us, we cursed her back and blocked her. Shifty ogre of a husband and his shitty runt of a child. Your grandmother had a way with words. Good on you for honoring her. Sorry that you are in this situation. Not the asshole. France has some unusual laws on inheritance, which are certainly not what is normal elsewhere. Worth a look up for those who are interested. How did they manage to exclude their child, your mother, from inheriting because that takes some doing? So bearing in mind this is France, how did your grandparents get round the very rigorous laws and disinherit your mother? Sounds like the kid was a brat due to being spoilt. I don't think that's a reason for the grandparents to treat him differently than the other kids. To make mom's appearance at the funeral contingent on her apologizing for not allowing her stepson to be treated like a second-rate child is kinda wild to me. Not the asshole, what is it in French? PLC? I can practically hear your grandparents cheering from here. I hope they left you a fricking fortune. Am I the asshole for having my sister come stay with us during my wife's postpartum recovery? My wife gave birth to our perfect daughter 3 weeks ago and her recovery has been extremely difficult. She was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression and psychosis ideation. Not toward the baby but toward herself. Not even sure what psychosis ideation is honestly, but I'm assuming it's bad. Where they have put her into therapy 3x a week and have a visiting nurse coming by to check on her and the baby twice a week. Her therapist recommended either I take off work for the time being or I bring someone in to help her because right now she needs all the help she can get. And yes, my wife is fully on board with help. She begged for it. She knew something was wrong and immediately went to the doctor. The only person I could think of to help was my sister. Now, my sister is 46 and she went through the same thing, diagnosis-wise. But hers was bad enough for hospitalization so she has a pretty good understanding, whereas I don't. And my boss is a prick and won't give me the time off and we desperately need the money. I didn't know where else to turn. At first my wife agreed to having my sister here, though she was a bit hesitant because my sister is on the opinionated side. But now, my wife is losing her shit on me for my sister being here at all and claiming she would rather be fully admitted to the hospital instead of dealing with it. Not because of my sister but because of my sister's dog. For whatever reason, the dog being anywhere near my wife is setting her off in ways that it usually wouldn't. I've asked my sister if she can have anyone take the dog and she doesn't. So my wife lost it yesterday. She was making dinner, she wanted to, and the dog came into the kitchen and sat by the fridge, which is about 6 feet away from the stove. My wife lost it. She started screaming, "Get that fucking mutt out of this house or else," saying something to the affect of she's sick and tired of a dog always at her feet begging and staring at her, etc. etc. Told my sister to get lost and that she wasn't helping her but instead making it worse due to her flea bag. I told my sister to just take off for a few hours while I calmed my wife down, and as soon as my sister left, it's like a flip switched. My wife was acting like nothing happened. So I told her that I needed to have my sister come back because I need to leave for work that night and she lost it again. Said if I bring my sister back here then she will leave with the baby. I'm lost here. ETA. My sister refuses a doggy daycare. She says it's not an option. Her doctor and therapist are aware of the mood swings and have openly told me that the dog is a trigger and has asked me to get the dog out of the house, but where my sister won't and I have no one else who can help, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. My wife has stated that the reason the dog is triggering her is because the dog is always touching her or begging for food, whining. I'm not around to see it due to my job, but I have noticed it a fairly good amount when I'm home. Look into FMLA. I'm not making a verdict on this one. No assholes here, but maybe you should look into hospitalization at this point. Your wife clearly needs more help than you can give in this particular situation. Not the asshole. Is the dog being outside an option? Maybe that's not such a good idea either though, because then your sister would be resentful. I know people don't care for churches, but I wonder if there is a local church with volunteers who could help you. Visiting angels or some such thing. I think you need to call her doctor and make them aware of the mood swings ASAP. No assholes here. Your wife is going through a difficult time and you're doing your best with that you can. Is there like a doggy daycare your sister can put the dog in while she's over to help? Am I the asshole for not uninviting my daughter from a dinner reservation? I have had a closer than family friend group for 20+ years. There are 4 couples, 8 people. 4 years ago one couple moved out of state. Last month, my out-of-state friend asked me to plan a get-together while they're in town. I brought it to the group and we picked a restaurant. I made reservations for 10 because sometimes someone brings an extra. One friend said, "It can be our anniversary dinner." 4 or 5 times we've celebrated our anniversaries together, although the real dates are far apart, but I was never aware of a rule that others can't attend. I didn't object, but the anniversary aspect of our plans was not on my radar. It wasn't pertinent, so I thought. Later, I invited my daughter, DD, 23Y. To dinner and texted the group, "DD is coming. One spot still open." But 2.5 hours before dinner, a different friend PM'd me, saying I must uninvite DD from our plans because they had been hoping to have dinner with the adults. This friend often brings, sometimes all 3 of, her adult kids. I refused to uninvite DD. She persisted. I tried to explain that DD has agoraphobia. It's not easy for her to agree to leave the house. There was no way in hell I could rescind her invitation 2.5 hours beforehand. This friend has known for weeks that the reservation was for 10. Things I didn't have a chance to say because she hung up on me. In fact, the reason I reserved 10 spots is I was hoping this friend in particular would bring her daughter, too. Also, I am not so heartless as to uninvite DD 2.5 hours before dinner, then go without her. Complying would have forced hubby and me out of the plans I had made for our other friend. DD has agoraphobia and it wasn't easy for her to say yes. She has been having a hard time lately. She would be devastated if I uninvited her now. So it's all about DD. I can count on one hand the number of times DD has been to dinner with the group. This was supposed to be our traditional anniversary dinner. I'm sorry, I didn't think of it as an anniversary dinner. If you had a problem with plans for 10, why didn't you say something weeks ago? I would have changed it if you had said something sooner. I was waiting to see what everybody else would do. Exact words. I am not uninviting DD, and you better not say one effing word about this to her at dinner tonight, it would destroy her. I can see you're getting upset, so I'm hanging up now. This is me, hanging up. They blew off dinner, giving no explanation. It has been 7 days. I'm not gossiping with the group about this. IDK if she might have PM'd others since. For my part, I raised my voice and dropped the F-bomb, so I apologized for that. Twice by text and again by voicemail crickets. I feel blindsided by such an epic blowout, seemingly out of nowhere. If you're thinking, it doesn't add up, you're right. I'm still reeling in total shock from how much it doesn't add up. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole you say. It was common for kids to join and there were always extra reservations made so that they could be. She really should have said something earlier instead of waiting to see what others said. I don't think anyone else had an issue since no one else brought it up, just this friend. Not the asshole. If this is out of character for your friend, sounds like she has something else out of sorts in her life. Maybe wait it out. If it's not out of character for her, then F her. Not the asshole. I'd have dropped the F-bomb the moment she said, "So it's all about DD," when she was the one who made it about her. Nothing your friend said makes any sense in relation to whether DD was there or not. You may not want to gossip with the group, but this sort of thing is just going to fester until your next planned meet-up, and if she's not responding to you, I think the only option is to ask your friends if they know what's going on with her. Not the asshole. With friends like that, who needs enemies? But seriously, if your friend knows your daughter at all, they should be happy that she's breaking out of her comfort zone and trusts your friends enough to be the people she's doing that with. Also, your point about not bringing it up last minute is 100% on point. Their reaction, blowing off dinner, is entirely immature. Not the asshole.